And so now I would love to usher in our next streamer, Pablo Quarta. Pablo, are we in? And
Hey,
amazing.
well,
Hi there. How are you?
hey, Lane, how are you? I'm so happy to be here. I've been
I'm
watching the
good.
stream. It's been very exciting. It's been looking very nice.
Thank you. It's so fun to have you here. So, folks, Pablo is an Argentine writer, editor, narrative designer, and game producer whose work sits at the intersection of storytelling, politics, and interactive media. He's an assistant professor at Torcuato Di Tella University and is a co founder of Matajuegos, the Latin American worker owned indie game cooperative dedicated to thinking and creating games from social, cultural, and political perspectives. And through Matajuegos, especially, Pablo has helped shape projects that have challenged conventional boundaries between documentary, art, and play. Recently, he contributed to a tool released in 2022, an award-winning surrealist documentary game that received Indicate's Innovation in Experience Design Award. And so, across both his academic and creative work, Pablo is committed to exploring how games can function as cultural artifacts, political tools, and spaces for collective imagination. Well, all of that sounds very fancy. Today, we have some baser pursuits, perhaps, that
Yes,
are about to happen.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't want to talk about any of that.
Yes,
No, I'm,
yes,
I'm happy
we're
to. If anybody in the chat wants to talk about that stuff, I'm happy to talk about it while we play some Smash Brothers.
Yeah, so and it's Smash Brothers Melee for the GameCube in particular, which I understand is a sort of like niche or kind of cult choice. And so I'm going to give
Yes.
you some room to explain what all that is about. But before I go, I want to remind folks that every hour we're raffling off a book donation from this hour. It's going to be MIT Press has given us a copy of Heim Gingold's Building SimCity: How to Put the world in a machine. So donations of $20 or more can enter you into a raffle to get a copy of this book mailed directly to your home by me. All right, Pablo, why don't you take over, get me out of here, and you explain to everybody what's about to happen.
All right, get some rest, Lane. We'll see you soon. All right. Hey, everyone. How are you doing? We're here to play some Smash Brothers Melee. I hope you can hear me well. I have the sound of the game feeding right into my ears, so it's a bit strange for me. I'm not a streamer. I'm not used to this, so this will be a bit awkward, just talking to myself for about an hour. But we're going to play some Melee. And first of all, I'm just going to show you just the classic mode of this game. This was kind of the second title in the Super Smash Brothers series, which now has, I think, like 5 games across that many consoles as well. I'm going to actually lower the volume a little bit more, just so you can hear myself a bit before I start. Please let me know, Cody, if that's too low for the stream. Perfect. So we're just going to get into it. And Smash Brothers Melee comes out after the 64 one, which was the very first one, kind of exploring this weird hybrid of a fighting game and a platformer. It was released in 2001, so it's about 25 years old today. I was kind of a bit scared when I kind of picked this game because I felt like it was very conventional choice and very kind of modern. But it's been a quarter of a century since it's been out and since I've been playing it, because I got it with my GameCube in 2001 when I moved to the United States for a short amount of time, for about 9 years when I lived there. And it was kind of a big part of my adolescence and kind of my social group. We played a lot of this game. We stayed up all night playing it up until dawn sometimes. It was a big part of kind of my friendship with my best friend at the time, Ole Olsen. And we kind of got... It was a different time, you know? There was no social media at the time, and it was... But eventually, somehow, through web forums, we found that a lot of people played this game very seriously, and that there was kind of a professional circuit around it. And right before the end of high school, we started hanging out with people who were playing this game professionally and earning money with it, and it was kind of strange. And we'll get into that a little bit later, about what it means to kind of play this game on a competitive level. Right now, we're just going to kind of mess around with it a bit and play kind of these conventional modes. One of the things that was new for this version of the game was kind of this hit the targets mode, this kind of mini game between levels where the game kind of is trying to teach you how to use your moves in different settings. So I'm getting a question there. Where I went to high school in Portland, Oregon. Actually, this was in 2002. That's when I started in middle school, and I graduated about 2007. And Melee has a kind of a Yeah, I was on the West Coast. I was, Oregon wasn't a very big competitive scene at the time. Everything was kind of in California, in SoCal and NorCal, and there was some stuff in Washington. But Portland and Oregon didn't really have a very big scene. There weren't that many players, and people in Oregon used to travel a lot in order to get some gaming going. Oh, this is such a annoying level because we need to get this young Link all the way over at an edge in order to try to kill him in a timely manner. Togepi not helping out here. Thanks, Togepi. Where are we? Okay. So this can go on for a while because this young Link likes to stay at the center at the center of this massive level, and he's so big that it's really hard to move him around. There we go. Okay. But yeah, Melee kind of has this very kind of troubled production history. It comes out in 2001 with the release of the GameCube, and it was kind of a flagship title. It was important for it to, do well. I'm actually trying to get these trophies in the middle, but I'm always very bad at this. Martha has kind of this big sword and hits very hard, so those trophies go flying everywhere. But yeah, Melee has this troubled history, which was only made in 13 months, and it's kind of a very ambitious project for such a short development time, especially for new hardware and with all the internal pressures in Nintendo, for it to kind of be a flagship for the new console. Especially after, Nintendo 64, which kind of had some troubled sales. I don't know. Anyways. And this meant that it's actually a pretty rough game for the amount of content and the amount of fighters and the amount of things it has in it. And you can't really tell while playing kind of the normal mode here with all the items and a million Kirby's in different colors. But when you kind of get into playing this game competitively, there's a lot of weird things that people exploit and take advantage of in order to make the game go a lot faster and for it to do things that it shouldn't. And after we get through classic mode, I'm hoping that I'll be able to show you some of that. Altasif, I was always a Marth main. I actually started out with Roy until I learned that Roy was not very good and that Marth was kind of like the better version. So for anyone who doesn't know too much about the series, Roy kind of hits a bit harder, but has shorter range. And in this version, Melee is actually kind of a bit of a broken character, not fully finished. So some of his hitboxes aren't fully programmed in, and he really struggles in kind of the meta and in competitive play. Marth, on the other hand, hits very hard with the tip of his sword, as opposed to Roy, who hits very hard with the hilt. And that means he can kind of stay out of range of most other characters, and and tends to have a few more options, although he can't scrap as well as Roy can. Balthazar says that Kirby's the best character, and is actually, you know, Kirby was actually very broken in 64 and was terribly nerfed in Melee, and is actually between the in the all throughout the years is actually at the bottom of the tier list, like next to Bowser, unfortunately. This is another one of the mini games that they added for Melee, which is kind of trying to rush to the end of this level, avoiding all these red platforms that burn you and hurt you. Let's see if we make it all the way to the end. I'm not going to settle for one of these earlier exits. No, I'm not going to make it. Alright, we'll settle for that one. So we're close to the end of Classic Mode. So this was actually very quick, just about 10 minutes. I actually wanted to show you Adventure Mode, which is quite a bit longer, but I'm afraid that this emulator will crash. It crashed a couple of times while I was testing it out. Although I got pretty far, so we might actually try it out in a bit. Just because I thought Classic Mode would take a bit longer, so we have a bit more time. And if it crashes, that's fine, because at least you got to see what Classic Mode was like back in 2001. So one of the things that kind of makes Melee a bit... Exactly, that's actually what I was about to say. That makes Melee kind of this strange game in the Smash Brothers series is that it's a lot faster and more technical than both in 64 and then all the games that came after it. It's got kind of a very demanding physics engine, which means characters are kind of very heavy, and it's hard to kind of get back onto the stage once you're off of it. And that's kind of hard for a lot of people to get used to. Games that came after Melee, you know, Smash Brothers titles that came after Melee are a lot floatier, and it's a lot easier to make it back to the stage no matter how far you are, and it's a lot easier to kind of move. Oops. And I'll show you a bit of and we'll see. We'll look at that in a bit. Meanwhile, we're fighting Master Hand, kind of the classic boss of Smash Brothers games, which I always found a bit strange because, you know, kind of the fantasy in Smash Brothers 64 is that you're kind of action figures, and that there's a kid or a child's hand playing with you. But at the end, there's kind of this revolt against this child's hand. It doesn't look like a child's hand, but I don't know who would be playing with so many action figures. Maybe it's a criticism against fan culture. I don't know. And because we did pretty well in Classic Mode, we get to also fight Crazy Hand, you know, the left hand, which is, you know, definitely some ableism there in the message about left-handed people and evil and Crazy Hand, you know. But let's see if we can get rid of Master Hand before we concentrate on Crazy Hand. I always love the animations on Crazy Hand. I think they're really, really nice. Ah. I haven't played Adventure Mode in so long. I mean, Classic Mode in so many years. So I've forgotten all the patterns for this fight. Exactly. That's great. No! It's terrible to watch that come at you in slow motion. We're gonna win this, though. We're gonna get this. Where's your hitbox, crazy hand? Ah, I always fall for that. There we go. Yes, I don't think Sakura knew about jazz hands back in 2001. Maybe he does now, I don't know. It'd be great to add a third hand with 2 thumbs, one on each side. And I remember this ending being a bit sad. Your character kind of goes back to being a figurine. I don't know if this is, it's kind of a bittersweet ending for classic mode, no? And then we get to see all our collection of trophies. And our room, maybe we were the hand. This is our oh. And then there was this mini game in which you shoot the credits, which I always thought was a lot of fun, although it makes you not pay so much attention to what the credits actually say and who was involved in the production and in what role. I don't know if I've seen another like gamified credit like this since then. I wonder if the new Smash games have something like this. Or you could also shoot the signs, all the logos that come up. You know, for this having been made in 13 months, it's just so ambitious, everything they did. All the things they added, the amount of content, the amount of characters, and this weird minigame. They could have just said, no, we're gonna stick some regular credits on here. But instead they decided to do this. Now we got an FMV of Marth, who looking good. So stylish. The most stylish character, definitely, in Melee. So that was 15 minutes. We have a bit of time. I'm going to show a little bit of adventure mode. I think maybe 10 more minutes of adventure mode, and then I'm going to show you some technical stuff about Melee that I want to get into, just because, just show a bit of variety about this game that is still being played very actively 25 years later, competitively, and in so many places across the world. So adventure mode was kind of this thing they tried out for Melee that then in Brawl, which is the next game in the series, becomes the Subspace Emissary, which was kind of this very kind of ambitious story game in which you start out with just one character, who is obviously Kirby, and you slowly start unlocking the other characters, and they kind of go on this epic mission to save the world, this epic quest to save the world, while kind of banding together against kind of a universal threat. Apparently the story was written by Final Fantasy VII's, one of the people responsible for Final Fantasy VII's story. At least that was kind of the PR claim at the time, although the game, that story has no dialogue, absolutely, and is not very complex. But it's just kind of interesting seeing how all the characters interact amongst each other. And this was kind of a test version of that. Supposedly they wanted to add a complex story for Melee, but they only had 13 months and it got cut. Apparently there were also talks for having Sonic and Snake in Melee. That ended up happening in Brawl at the end. But so adventure mode in Melee ends up being kind of this romp through all these different Nintendo games, in which, oh god, that Goomba just completely wrecked me. In which you kind of traverse through these games, but with Smash Brothers mechanics. and just kind of annihilate everyone. So I'm gonna wait until I have a 2 here on my timer, because if I go with the 2, I get to fight Luigi instead of Mario in a very cool, a very funny animation scene plays. There we go. Get wrecked, Mario. We're gonna fight Luigi instead. There we go. No! And the thing I like about Adventure Mode in Melee is it's just very lively, and you get to see a lot of characters all the time. They like to kind of fill the screen with these small version of the characters, which can absolutely wreck you when they tag team you. I think the idea here was that these are supposed to kind of represent Diddy and Dixie Kong before you fight Donkey Kong, but obviously they didn't get to make those characters, so you just get to fight tiny DKs, which is a bit strange. And then you get to fight the huge DK, obviously, because DK wasn't big enough on his own. You had to make him even bigger. We're hoping that what's it called? One of those alligators from Donkey Kong Country games gets them. Claptrap? Oh, this is the worst level. I hate this level because it's a maze, and you have to find a bunch of links until you find the Triforce. We're gonna kind of game it a bit. We'll maybe fight one link, and if we don't use... So there's the Triforce. I could just end this level, but we're gonna go find a link to fight, just so I can show you how annoying this level can be first. There we go. And you can find like 5 or 6 of these before you find the Triforce. Yeah, and you can find a bunch of these links around. Where did it come from? Did this teleport me? I thought it came from up above. Oh, there we go. Okay. No, I can't make it. There we go. And I think you're supposed to fight all these redeads and all these enemies, but it's no fun. Oh, hey, Pat. And while I'm here fighting on this huge level that never ends and that takes a while, remember to donate. ROMchip's great. And I felt very lucky we got to publish an interview about Matajuegos, our co-op there, on ROMchip in both English and Spanish a couple of years ago. And we were very happy with the work that was done and with the quality of all the other articles and interviews that were in our issue. And is that enough? It's not enough. There we go. And if you donate $20, you know, you get a chance to win a book. A great book. I think it's the SimCity book from MIT Press. This level's a lot of fun because you can break it, unlike a lot of the other levels. You can kind of wreck it apart and it starts to fall apart. Eventually, it kind of seems back together, but let me see if I can finish breaking this. I just don't want to fall on the other side. No. Never mind, we're just gonna kill Sans. And it has kind of these the adventure mode has these kind of like narrated segments, which is trying to do some platforming and relive moments of different Nintendo games as well. I think we're just gonna do this and a couple more levels, and then I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna head out of this, and we're gonna talk a bit about technical things, just to show a bit of variety about what Melee is. I think this is kind of a good introduction into kind of the design goals, like the commercial goals for Melee, of it being kind of this party game for families, developed in very short time, so it's, you know, not as polished on the user experience, I think, as they wanted to. The characters feel complicated to move and to play as. They're very heavy. They're very fast. I think the later games are a lot more user friendly, in being a lot floatier, being a lot slower. But they kind of lose a bit of the appeal of Melee, which is that you can make things go very fast. If you get used to the controls, you get used to the physics, you get used to how complicated it is and how weighty everyone feels. Not everyone, but most people, most characters. I love this Kirby level. I love just how many Kirbys there are, and I love all their hats. Although I hate this level, just because of the bombs. The bombs are terrible. This feels a bit mean-spirited on my side to just... I think the beak's a bit much for Kirby, no? I think just the mohawk was good enough, the feathers. I love those introduction screens for each one of the levels. Just don't...
Fox, we've come to help. Looks like you've taken a beating. Hang on.
This feels unfair, no? To send 3, jet planes, fighter jets after me? I only have a sword. Luckily, they hurt Fox just as much as they hurt me, so... And this is where it crashed last time at Pokemon Stadium, just because I think there's going to be too many things going on the screen. There's a lot of Pokeballs, there's a lot of Pokemon, there's a lot of Pikachus, there's Pichus, just a lot of effects on the screen. But we'll see. Let's see how it goes. We'll try to use our Pokeballs sparingly. There we go. So yeah, the Pokemons don't use the Pokeballs. I think that should do it. Never mind. No! These two last Pikachus are they're just ganging up on him. There we go. That's right, it does have kind of the camera in the background, it has transformation, there's a lot of Pokeballs, there's a lot of things happening. So I think this might, oh, yes, you have to race the F-Zero cars, which seems dangerous. Don't do this at home. I keep forgetting exactly, I haven't played this level in a while, so I forget exactly where I'm supposed to go. Can I make it to the next platform before the cars come? Yes. So it's a strange kind of commercial multiverse for Nintendo games in order to get you to kind of buy into the franchises and get you to buy a lot of games. I think, you know, Smash Brothers and Melee was pretty successful. Can I make it to the end? Yes. Alright. Yes, we're gonna play on Big Blue right now, and it's probably one of the best. No, never mind. We don't get to play on Big Blue. That's a shame. Right, that's right. We were in Mute City. Captain Falcon wanted to style on me there. Oh no! Okay. There was no need to taunt me there. There we go. So I think this is going to be it. We're just going to beat up a bunch of small children right now, and then I think we're going to move on from adventure mode. This level's actually pretty deadly, because Nessas, when they gang up on you, when they grab you and start beating you up, are pretty lethal. Always loved how in this level cars just run you over. There we go. How far off are we? Icicle Mountain. Okay, let's just show this one off. This is a very strange stage, kind of based on ice climbers, which were kind of introduced into this game for the first time in Smash Brothers. Again, another platforming segment with a bunch, kind of this retro feel. All right, I think this is it for adventure mode. I think we're gonna move on to something else now. All right, Cody, I'm gonna switch to a different program. OBS should pick it up automatically because it's actually the same emulator. But I'm gonna move over to a different instance of it. Just a heads up. Let me know if you're picking it up. Perfect. Okay. Let me just. Okay. Perfect. So this is kind of a training pack emulator of Smash Brothers made by the gaming community, by kind of the fighting game, kind of the enthusiast Melee community. I'm gonna pick someone big to show off. Ganondorf is great. In which we're gonna turn some things on and off here. For example, we're gonna turn off the CPU right now. We're just gonna make him pretend to be human, so he's not gonna do anything because there's no controller control. We're gonna, let me see, did that work? Is this showing? Yes, this is showing lines. Okay, perfect. And we're gonna, what else are we gonna do? Did I freeze yes, I froze myself. There we go, okay. What else are we gonna do? Give me a second just to set this up. I'm gonna switch some toggles there, okay. There we go. That's stuck. Why is that stuck? Get that off my screen. Oh, because I did that in the wrong order. Let me just do this right. There we go. Okay. Come on. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So I don't know how much people know about Smash Brothers in the chat. How much you know how kind of Smash Brother works as a game in general. Unlike other fighting games, you only really have two attack buttons. You have the A and the B attack buttons. A is where all your normal attacks are kind of where they live. Your attacks aren't divided into like in Super Street Fighter. You have like three punching buttons and 3 kicking buttons. All your normal attacks live just on the A button, and you have 4 attacks on the A button. You have your just neutral attack, then you have one that is on both sides, one that is down below, and one that is up above. And you change between these with the control stick. But then you also have a strong version of these attacks. And kind of like in Street Fighter 1, where the idea was that you, in the arcade cabinet, you were trying to hit the button harder to do harder attacks. What you're doing here is you're hitting the control stick harder in order to get the stronger version of these attacks. So like this, and you can charge these up if you want. So this is kind of like the strong side attack for Mars, this is the strong up attack, this is the strong down attack. And you have these in the air as well, not strong or weak, just kind of side attacks in the air and up attacks, down attacks, and neutral attacks. And then on your B button, you have your special attacks, which in the case of Martha is kind of like this charging attack, which kind of breaks shields, and a counter, this kind of dancing blade attack. I should have done this with Martha, that would have been easier to kind of explain. And kind of this rising attack here that lets you get back on stage. And then, unlike other fighting games, you just have like this big shield. you don't like press down to shield. You actually have a shield that kind of slowly shrinks over time if you're holding it, and it also shrinks if you get attacked, which kind of doesn't allow you to like play defensively very much. It means that you have to like constantly get out of the range of attacks and bob and weave in order for your shield to kind of recharge. You can't shield for very long. You can't play defensively for very long. And you have, if you shield and move the controls to the side, you can dodge to the side. And you can also kind of dodge down if you want to stay in place and dodge in attack. And you can do this in the air as well. You can kind of dodge here in the air, and you can kind of move this to the side. You can dodge to the side, dodge up, and you can even dodge down, which is very important. Well, this will become very important in a little bit. And what's actually very important in Smash Brothers, and mainly in particular, is movement. Movement is what it's all about. It's a game where you want to move as fast as possible. At least that's what the melee competitive scene is about. It's about breaking this game, this physics engine, to allow you to move much faster than any developer wanted you to. And there's a couple of ways that players do this. Normally, the movement that you're allowed in the game is kind of, walking, dashing, if you hit the control stick a bit harder, and if you control the stick and hold it, you start running. Nobody wants to run. Running is actually really bad, because while you run, you don't have access to most of your attacks. You can have access to a dash attack, and you have to kind of crouch to get back your attacks back. And if you want to turn while running, you have this very slow animation which leaves you very, very vulnerable. So it's very bad. What you want to do is just dash all the time, which is what people do. Because while you dash, you do have access to some of your attacks. And you can turn around immediately. So you will see people, professional players, constantly dashing back and forth, because if you dash too long, you start running. So you just want to turn around as soon as possible and can play on the edge, on the limit of your dashes in order to move as quickly as possible and have access to more attacks. And the other kind of movement that breaks the game and makes a lot of things possible is wave dashing, which is this thing that I've been doing on and off throughout the stream, which isn't a way that anyone in development wanted players to move. And the way you do this is, you can jump, or you can kind of have a high jump. If you do a short jump, and then you air dodge back onto the stage, you keep some of the momentum of that air dodge. And if you do this very quickly, you don't even leave the ground. You cancel your jump with the air dodge, and suddenly you're sliding across the ground. And while you're sliding, in your kind of crouching animation, you can actually use any of your moves. And so it's great because you can move and attack. You're not locked out of any of your moves while you're wave dashing. And this is something that was kind of discovered very early on in Smash Brothers, in the Smash Brothers competitive scene, in kind of the melee competitive scene, and kind of really changed the way that the game is approached and made it much, much faster. And this isn't something that is accessible in Brawl or any of the future Smash games. This is something that is kind of unique to Melee. It's not available in 64. And I think the reason it's not is because I think, Sakurai and the other developers at Nintendo looked at this and were kind of terrified by it. And by kind of the idea that people would take this game. Sorry, Obscuratory, I'm playing with a GameCube controller. And so it makes that sound. I was taught wave dashing by some friends who learned wave dashing from some other friends who played more competitively. I am not a good player, Obscuratory. I wish I was. I have some technical skill, but I am not a particularly good player, which we'll see very shortly, because we're going to play online a little bit. Yes, I know that there's some high-level Melee players who are not nice people, or who at least have some attitudes, certain attitudes that are not sometimes very welcoming. But I don't play the game competitively. I just play online. And I've been playing this game for 25 years, so I like the way it makes my hands feel. It feels very nice. But the thing about wave dashing is you can also kind of do it when you're landing. on any platform. And so suddenly moving on platforms becomes this beautiful fast thing, and suddenly the game is running at a much faster pace than people would imagine normally. I don't play Smash locally here in Argentina. I moved to Argentina much later. I think it's just there's less people. Oh, I forgot there was a timer on. Sorry, we're gonna come back into it soon. So let's turn these things back on. Can I do this? Sorry. There we go. So we're gonna move this to be human. We're gonna make sure that DI is on. Is DI on? Oh, I did not do that right. There we go. Getting crushed by Ganondorf. No, I didn't do that right. Let's see if I did it right now. There we go. Yeah. So what you can see, that that line that you can see when Ganondorf is flying through the air is kind of the is the trajectory of Ganondorf's flight whenever I hit him. And right now he's just moving across that blue line, and the more I hit him, the higher his percent goes, the farther he goes. But if we give Ganondorf kind of his ability to move back and do his things, we'll see that now there's more lines whenever I hit him. The blue line is the line that he goes on. The red line is the line that he would go on if he wasn't using any directional influence. Directional influence is basically, if you want to move, you can kind of influence where you're sent by an attack with the control stick. And this makes true combos, like in Street Fighter and things like this, kind of impossible in Melee. What you need to do is kind of estimate and react to your opponent's trajectory, to where they're wanting to go to get away from you, in order to continue your combos and to continue hitting them, right? I'm not using a lot of DI, as you can tell. My line is just blue, or at least it's not marked in line for whatever reason. And this means that there's kind of a defensive minigame whenever you get hit in Smash, in Melee at least, which means you're always playing, even when you're losing in a certain sense. And this means that you can kind of live for much longer than you would otherwise if you know how to play the game well and you know how the DI is working for your opponent. We're going to do a couple more things that I just want to show you, just to look at kind of the guts of Melee and how it works before we move on. We're going to turn off some of these developer commands on. They're a bit tricky sometimes. Oh, what happened there? Oh, okay, yeah. Nice. Sorry. I locked myself in position. I'm going to try to get myself out of it, but I don't know if I can. Sorry. Let me see if I can do this. I think we're stuck. There we go. Let me just do this one more time. Let's see if we can do it this time. So what I wanted to show you was the actual hitboxes in Melee and what they look like. They're round as opposed to the way they are in most fighting games, in which kind of hitboxes are square. Sorry. I can now I can kind of show you this slowly. You'll see that hitboxes are round and red, and they kind of draw these beautiful lines on the screen as they move. I can actually should be able to actually remove the background. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do to show you. Sometimes I like to just play this way because it lets you kind of get past the animations and see what is actually going on with the hitboxes and the models. And the black background just also lets you see some of the effects. The variety of effects, like for example, I love the effects here. Here in Melee, the amount of different effects that are playing for every hit is just wild. And that this was happening kind of in order to get a bunch of juice out of this game. Do purple and blue signify, they're different types of hitboxes. I don't remember right now. I think blue means that you're invincible, and I think purple means that it's a hitbox that can be targeted, but that can't be grabbed, which is another thing you can do in the game. You can grab characters. Let me see, let me actually put this back on, because otherwise I don't know where I am. And I can also show you what the levels actually look like in kind of the geometry. And these triangles that we have are actually our collision boxes, not our hitboxes, but our collision boxes for moving, for knowing if we're on platforms. And they take different shapes based on the animation you're in. You'll see that they'll stretch and they'll shrink. You see, if I crouch, it shrinks because my collision's a lot smaller. If I jump, it also shrinks and kind of becomes square. And because Marth's such a tall character, my collision, my ECB, my collision box is actually very, very tall. And Ganon's is very wide because Ganon is pretty wide. So we only have 10 minutes left. So we're actually going to get into an online game before I go, just to show you that during the pandemic, we actually had a bunch of programmers working on rollback code for Melee, and it's actually one of the best rollback codes for fighting games that's out there, both in commercial and fan communities, in commercial games and fan games. All right, so Cody, I'm gonna get out of this for a second, and I'm going to open up another program that it should also be up kind of immediately. Okay. Are we seeing this? Okay, so this is Slippy, which is kind of an online client of the emulator, of the Melee emulator. For playing online games, we'll see if we can kind of run into someone quickly. There we go. Oh no, these people are gonna wreck me. I'm very bad against ice clones. We have a lot of ping though, so they'll probably just quit out because we have about 272 ping with these people. They're playing from somewhere very far away. So we're gonna quit out because this connection is very bad. And we're gonna hope that we run into someone who's a bit closer in a second. Speaking very briefly, as a kind of competitive scene, Melee is still very active. There's still tournaments with hundreds and hundreds of players happening to this day, 25 years later. And due to all these kind of tools that have kind of been developed since the pandemic, it's actually, people are playing at a very high level because they can train and play online, thing which wasn't possible really to do even 5 years ago. And so the ceiling of competitive play has really risen. And the big issue with the competitive scene is that Nintendo hates it. Nintendo absolutely detests the competitive Melee scene because they don't want they want to kind of bring attention to their newer Smash games and not really to this old 25-year-old title. And so they've actually boycotted a lot of not boycotted, but actually brought out cease and desist letters to a bunch of tournaments and events and series and gotten them canceled. They've even threatened Melee's presence at EVO on several occasions. And so the Melee scene as a competitive scene is actually all grassroots because there's very little money and there's few sponsors. There's no real institutional support for it. So it's been running all this time basically on spite to a certain extent and the love of the game. Just because none of the other Smash games have really given Melee players the ability to move this fast or to be this technically competent. And so a lot of them are incredibly loyal and have been playing, if not for those 25 years, for a very long time. And those who don't play anymore are commentators or tournament organizers. And it has a very interesting history that's been very well documented. There's several documentaries, like multi-part documentaries about Smash Brothers Melee and its scene. And if any of this has seemed interesting to you, I definitely encourage you to check them out. Most of them are up on YouTube, and those that aren't are readily accessible with a couple of Google searches. Or just message me if you want a Blue Sky, and I can recommend some. This Sheik is not very good. Otherwise, I would not be able to play and chat. I'm also not very good. I know it seems maybe that I'm a good player. I'm okay technically, but I am not very good. But I think Tendov is actually kind of like really helping us out here by playing like this. I think we only have 5 more minutes, so I'll just finish this and then. Okay, there we go. Anyways, that's all I have to say about Super Smash Bros. Melee for now.
Hello, Pablo. Hey there. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. I've been speaking for an hour, which is something I don't like to do. So.
Oh, we really appreciate it. I think I loved hearing you say, "I like how this game feels in my hands."
That's the truth of it. This is why I play it. It just feels.
Yeah. We just lost Pablo's audio. Well, let's see if we can get it back for a sec. But anyway, Pablo, maybe if we can't hear you, I hope you can hear me. Thank you so much for being a supporter of ROMchip. It's so amazing to have you here on the stream, showing us the technical ins and outs of Melee Smash. And let me get my little show Bible up here. So we are at 5,210. We are 74% of the way to our $7,000 basic operating expenses goal. Now, folks, don't go anywhere.